Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Light on Suitability. I'm your host, Elizabeth Comeau, and I'm with my co-host, Joseph Haytas, and good friend. We are, for anyone new to the show, parole suitability attorneys primarily, and we represent eligible parolees who are incarcerated in prison for life sentences. And our main role in life is to help these men and women get themselves a grant of parole and also be successful after they are released, which is important for today's topic. So I wanted to hang on one second. Somebody's got an issue with hang on. We're going to talk about 36 Strategies of Suitability, a book written by Joseph Haytas. And we are doing a series of shows on each chapter for, really deep diving. And also for Joe, because he is planning to anyway, I'm fiddling with my friend wants to find the show and I can't keep fiddling with it. Okay. So we're doing chapter 3. Sorry about that.
Yes, chapter 3, Get Educated.
Get educated. And so some of the key points from the chapter that I got out of it is number 1, the statistical benefits of education in prison. I think that you presented by the Rand Corporation, some kind of a study, and that it found that people in prison who participate in correctional education programs have 43% lower odds of returning to prison, which is really good, really
Yes.
good, because you and I are dealing with people that only have a less than 1% recidivism rate at all. And so, and this is compared to people who don't participate in these programs, obviously, otherwise the study doesn't make any sense. And so you, I think part of this is that also, Joe, you're going to talk about how it serves as a transformative tool and to equip inmates, with skills, not only with skills, but I find sometimes it boosts their self-esteem. I'd like to talk to you about that as well. Reducing idle time, getting away from gang activity as an excuse, the long-term benefits, and more. So I'd like to ask you, Joe, since it's your book, I don't want to hog. My husband's like, stop talking about Joe's book. Let Joe talk about his book. Okay. But let's first talk about the nuts and bolts. What educational programs? We're not talking about this chapter about self-help, right? We're talking about actually getting educated about skills and educational, like true educational stuff, right?
Yes, of course. It's about enhancing your skills, your mindset. It's a new way of thinking, of getting involved in learning. And learning, we help. It helps change the pathways of our brains, to a different worldview, a different
Interesting.
concept of the way the world works.
Interesting. That's a very interesting comment that I hadn't expected. So we're dealing with her, and you're dealing with getting GEDs, high school diplomas, vocational training, and college. Are those the 4 primary ones that you're talking about?
Yeah, in general, but that can be added to. That's what is pretty much available to inmates. Obviously, that's high school education. Some college is a AA degree, vocational training. And one thing that's not on there that could be is on the job training. Some of the
Mm,
inmates learn on the
beautiful.
job through PIA.
PIA is really huge, and
Yeah.
IDL, I think they have another one that's similar to PIA.
What is that called?
IDL, inmate day labor.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I've talked to some inmates who have that, and they learn some really good skills, like in plumbing, maintenance, things like that, where they work with their hands and they actually learn a skill while they're working, and that's a great thing. Anything that can be used to improve your life, not only your worldview, but also marketable skills where you can go out and earn a living wage. Like inmate day labor.
Yeah, inmate day labor. One thing, just for people out there that don't know, so anyone sentenced to life in prison, even some sentenced to life without possibility of parole after a certain period of time when they get classified to a lower level, can participate in education, meaning getting a GED, which is
Hmm.
just passing an equivalency test. There's also opportunities for taking and getting a high school diploma. So actually going to classes just like we used to do in high school and sitting there for the 3 or 4 months, learning about the topic, taking a discrete test on that topic, getting that portion of the credit, and so on. So getting the 100 credits or 60 credits or whatever it is for high school, you can do it that way. You can do it GED, whatever's available. GED is like a 3-step process. There's AB called Adult Basic Education 1, Adult Basic Education 2, and 3. I think that's what they call it.
Hmm.
And you go through, and then once you get to 3 and you pass the test for 3, you can try and take your GED. Most of the commissioners are going to tell you, look, take this GED, get a GED.
Hmm.
Why? Because, and I want Joe to explain this in a little bit, but just to continue, we've also got vocational training. What is that? Learning how to weld, learning how to be an electrician, HVAC, auto
Hmm.
body, mechanical repair of stuff,
There you go. Those are
computer
practical things.
technology. Exactly. Any kind of trade stuff that they can teach you in prison, you can get certificates for that to say, I've been trained in food handling, safety, all kinds of different stuff is available at a variety of prisons,
Sure. Healthcare
mostly.
facilities maintenance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Janitorial services, you need a
Hmm.
certificate. It's really great. So if you can walk into your parole hearing with these types of things, you're going to show that you have marketable skills. And then Joseph always did mention work assignments. And through your work assignments, you learn stuff. You're not going to get a certificate for it. Just kind of a hybrid, though, that PIA, prison inmate labor. I think it's prison inmate authority, prison inmate something.
Yeah.
Slave labor, it is 13 cents an hour, but they do make uh, the inmates learn a lot of skills on the job training, like Joe said. And so you learn how to process cheese, make socks, make mattresses, desks, all this stuff. Anything that gets distributed through the prison is probably made by the inmates. So
Hmm.
the desks, I mean, I've seen some of the desks that they've made. And then the other day I was at the prison and the guys were fixing the HVAC. They were crawling up. It was staff supervising, and there was a couple of inmates tinkering and figuring it all out and fixing it.
Wow.
So very important. And then finally, I wanted to go back to the point that you said. I hope I remember what I was going to ask you about. And I don't. I should have written it down. Right before I started, I was saying I would explain it for the listeners. You said why it was so important. Just
What?
lost it.
What were you
Totally
talking
lost it.
about? Can I
I wish I
help?
could
Mhm.
rewind.
Yeah.
But anyway, it'll come back to me.
Okay.
Why don't we first let's talk about you and why the inclusion of this chapter.
Well, I think it's obvious. It should be because this is an opportunity to learn and grow while you're incarcerated. It's to help you become a better person, and then also you have something to give once you get out, a skill you can use to help yourself, your family, and provide a service to other people. There's, unfortunately, when people come to prison, many of them haven't completed high school. They're not thinking about the future. They're thinking about the here and now and all this stuff they've been
I've
doing
got a life
have,
sentence. I'm
yeah,
never
that have
getting
brought
out.
them to prison. They've
Mhm.
been, unfortunately, they haven't been addressing their needs for self-support on the outside. So,
Mhm.
uh, unfortunately, they can learn in prison. But
Mhm.
you know that
And they
comes
came
to
in with I think why it's important too, to add to that is they come in and like 85% of our clients come in without an education. They dropped out of school. They didn't work and all of this stuff. So it's a really nice way, I think, to add to the who you were then, offender change. Who am I now?
yeah.
Before work, lazy,
Mhm.
criminal activities to support myself. And now I work. And I think it shows something extremely powerful when you're willing to be a good worker, even though you earn 13 cents an hour, 20 cents an hour, whatever, and be able
Mhm.
to, just go there and you get a laudatory chrono saying he's got a good attitude. He's one of my best workers and all of that. It's so powerful because part of the thing that they're looking for offender change and sometimes programming is not just institutional behavior, like you didn't get in trouble, but laudatory chronos, going above and beyond just being rule compliant is one of the standards that's often cited. And so when you can come to the hearing, this officer says, wow, you know, Mr. or Mrs. Smith, instrumental to me running this operation. It's been great to have him or her, and without them, I can't pull this job off. They're supportive of the other workers. They always find solutions to the problems. Some personalized laudatory chrono that they're
Yeah,
looking for.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's an excellent observation. Using that to compare the before and the after and the change, because
Mhm.
obviously when they were in the streets doing whatever they were doing, they weren't, supervising 75 people as the foreman or something.
Right.
Whatever it is.
In general. Yeah, in
Yeah.
general.
Or even if they're not like in a supervisory part, just coming every day, having a good attitude, doing a good job, and going home back to your housing at night, regardless of whether the status of the level. But it's just something that they didn't do in the past. That discipline of waking up every morning and going to a
Mhm.
job, whether it's you're bored or whatever, you're doing it, and that takes discipline. It's something they didn't have in the past either, the discipline
Again,
to wake up and
yeah.
do the job every day.
I'm thinking about maybe this might remind me of the question that I had before that I forgot, but is it a bar to suitability if you don't have a GED, college, or vocational training? An absolute bar.
It's not an absolute bar, uh, but it helps in everything. Like, okay, say you don't have a GED and you probably, maybe not always, but probably don't have a 12.9 GPL. So how are you going to prepare for the hearing if you don't have just basic writing skills and reading comprehension skills? I believe that'll help. It won't be the whole thing, but it'll help get you up to speed on doing the things, going to programming, comprehending the material, and then using what you need from the programming to cope with stressors, to just improve yourself. And I think the GED is a good fundamental uh, to help you do that: reading, writing, speaking, the reading, writing, and arithmetic part of it.
Right. So being able to go to the self-helps that I said wasn't really included in our discussion, but if you're
Mhm.
really struggling to your reading comprehension, you're struggling with reading comprehension or basic stuff, you know, what if I send you the workbook? What if you have to read The Road to Freedom, or, Bad Boys, Bad Men, or relapse prevention strategies workbook, or AA, the big book. If your reading comprehension is low, you may not be able to get through that. And also, I think you touched upon just basic the confidence that we all get in just completing
Mhm.
something and getting that certificate. Like, I've been studying for the life insurance exam, and I had
Mm.
to kind of put it on hold, but even just being able to accomplish something like that, as you know, I'm studying Spanish. I'm not going to
Yes.
get a certificate for it, but one day, if I'm ever able to hold a conversation, it does give you a little boost of self-esteem. And I know these guys my clients come to their meetings and go, "Oh, I got my graduation yesterday. I just got the certificate." And I know it's a big deal. It's huge. It's
Yeah.
huge. It's something that they hadn't done before, they hadn't accomplished before. And we actually, just to interrupt the conversation, we have a listener. Thank
Mhm.
you. God bless you.
Wow.
World Be
Well,
Free, if you like that. What an appropriate name. Suitability. Suitability. You want to help World Be Free understand suitability?
World Be Free is our viewer.
She's our viewer. She's our
That's
friend.
that's great. Well,
Yeah.
welcome to the show. I love the name World Be Free. That
My
is so
husband my
appropriate.
husband loves it too. He's like, "How did you ever get that name?"
I love it.
Mhm.
It almost, yeah,
Suitability.
perfect.
What is it?
Suitability. It
Yeah, she's
means,
asking, "Can you please explain suitability for those of us just tuning in?"
sure. Suitability means you're viewed by the state as no longer a current risk of danger to society, and not just in layman's terms, but in terms of the Board of Parole hearings, where your change is such that you're no longer that person and you've addressed all of your issues that you had in the past regarding the causative factors of the crime that brought you to prison. It means having parole plans so that you can set yourself up for success on parole. There's a lot of things, but in general, that's it. Uh,
Right.
there's
And
much
just
more
taking
though.
it one it's much more involved, but taking it one step back, just because it's just a brand new listener, even though there's a bunch. Usually this show is for, and I don't think World Be Free is a loved one of, or has a loved one who's incarcerated in prison, but that's okay. Like Alan says,
Mhm.
our show cuts across a broad swath, and there's something for everybody. In general, this one's a bit this show is a bit technical, a bit more nuts and bolts, but in terms of in California and a lot of other states, inmates, persons sentenced to life in prison, not life without possibility, but life with the possibility of parole, means you serve a life sentence until you prove to the board that you're not a current and unreasonable risk to public safety. And then, like Joe was explaining, how do you do that? Number one, I follow the rules now. I no longer get written up in the prison, or I don't get any more additional crimes. Sometimes I get additional crimes. I don't get into any controversies with people that are written on the side that aren't in a rules violations report. I attend and participate in a ton of self-help programming to learn about who I used to be, my character defects, my causative factors of how I got the character defects, triggers for potentially relapsing into an old behavior, and coping strategies. So what they want is my old coping strategies. They used to be use drugs, use alcohol, use violence, commit crimes, steal from people, etc., and a whole host of other stuff that we don't necessarily need to mention. And so I've got coping strategies. So instead of coping with my problems with that stuff, I now have this whole other toolbox of coping strategies that I have gained through the use of reading books, attending classes, attending groups, talking to therapy sessions, if possible, talking to other inmates, talking, and then getting educated. And that's what we're talking about today. Usually you start there because that you get a little educated, and that gives you the confidence to go and try this self-help group that seems kind of like, self-help and talk about my problems, especially for our clients who are men. It's like, my feelings, what feelings? Like, they don't have feelings. So to give you the confidence to learn about that. And then the final thing is to be able to put it all together and come to a board of parole hearings and talk to panel members for 2 to 3 hours about what you've learned, articulate insight, articulate internalization of programs. It's not a college test. You have to come internalized, not memorized. You cannot memorize the 12 steps and get out of prison. You have to articulate, for instance, how you've used the steps. Usually they gloss over the education, but what we're trying to explain here today is that education is sort of a foundational. It gives you that good foundation to say, okay, well, I've got skills. So when I go out, I have to have this parole plan to show the board that I've got a plan. I'm not just leaving the gate with my $200 and then I'm going to wing it. You're not allowed to go out and wing it. You have to have a plan. Where am I going to get money for food, clothing? How am I going to get around? Who's out there to support me? Where am I going to live? Where am I going to work? And that's why it's so key. So these foundational steps, get a GED or high school diploma. College is kind of a bonus thing. You don't need college. Get a trade and or a marketable skill if you didn't have one in the past. And so that you can show some sort of resume. I always have my clients make a little resume if they're lacking in some of these areas to show, okay, I don't have a GED or a vocation, but I've got a resume and I'm going to show you. I did PIA. I was a porter for 3 years. I've in the community. I actually did work here and there. So I do have marketable skills. So that is a big thing for suitability. So suitability, interestingly enough, for my listener friend, Melissa, who also has another YouTube channel, which anyone listening should listen to her channel. But I think it's just the three of us, to be honest, today. This is more of a resource for the loved ones of our community. But suitability, interestingly enough, it is a concept in life insurance. So anyway, suitability means you qualify to purchase life insurance because you have to qualify before you can purchase whole life insurance or any other kind of insurance. So that was for Melissa. I'll just show you her question, Joe. She asked.
Okay.
I want to get this little avatar thing that she's got too. I love that. You got to help me with that, girlfriend. Okay. Oh, 2 of us. You, Melissa, and I cheated. It's probably Alan. But he's a big fan. He's a good supporter of me, and I appreciate that. So, anyway, just so Melissa knows, this is kind of a resource for the loved ones of our clients. But like Alan said, we talk about a lot of stuff. Like last week, we talk about ourselves sometimes, right, Joe? We talk about getting out of our own way, the definition of insanity, what it really means in prison. And I don't know, we're the behind the scenes of Orange is the New Black or whatever you television watchers see out there. Anyway, it's fun to have someone here. Let's get back to a little bit What do you think? What do you think our clients have in terms of challenges to accessing education to try and get those foundational steps?
You're asking how they get the education?
What are their challenges? You know, we interview a lot of clients and we say,
Mhm.
"What's going on? How's your GED? Can you get it? This and that." What are some of the challenges that they
That's a good
might face?
question. I think it would be their challenges would be personal to them. Uh, whatever challenges they had, where why they didn't do it earlier. Challenges such as reading comprehension, because they probably haven't read a whole lot. And since there's a lot of reading involved, things like that, basic things like reading, taking notes, uh, memorizing and learning. Also a big challenge for a lot of them is the math part. They don't get the math.
Yeah,
Um,
they don't get the math. And
they
math
prob-
is,
Mhm.
I think it's just a psychological hurdle more than anything because it's, I don't know, we all have this, we love negativity, right? And so it's like, I just don't get math instead of saying math is interesting and fun. And it's the same thing that I repeat to all of my clients all the time. Some of it's just repetition is the key to mastery, repetition, repetition. And I'll tell you, going back to your original chapter, Joe, for challenges,
Mhm.
mindset, 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 lack
Yeah.
of discipline, lack of focusing on being free, the requirements for that, dedication, getting in there, overcoming your low self-esteem. I can't do it. I won't be good at it or whatever. It's like, who cares? Just get at least a C, but try harder than to just to get a C. But I think it's some other challenges too are English as a second language, but
Mhm.
that's why you start at AB1. You'll start at AB1. And another challenge to getting like a vocation is if your TABE score, which is test for adult basic education score, you just test randomly to see where you're at, kind of like a second language learning thing they do. Where you at? I'm like,
Mhm.
yesterday I did that for myself. You're A2. And then I tried to answer the questions, the robot questions. And I'm like, I said, robot, I'm not A2. I'm A1. Like, you got to talk to me down here. Talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old. But so ESL, so if you have a TABE under 9, no GED, okay,
Mhm.
you it's very difficult to access vocational training because you have to take tests and read books and not books, but manuals, and different handouts they're going to give you for the vocational training. So that could be difficult. But I know once people gain that GED and then they can access the college, it's like, well, how do they access college? They have state-sponsored colleges that will send you correspondence courses and you can get AA degrees in. You're kind of limited. You can't just get AAs in everything, but they've got about 4 standardized ones. And the guys love it when they get those college degrees. Man, are they extremely proud of themselves and seeing the difference between who they were
Sure,
then
and,
and who they are now.
it's something that they're very proud of. In fact, uh, they have family members come for a graduation ceremony at times, some of them do, and it's really cool to see. I've been in, you know, going through security, and I've seen, like, family members waiting because 'cause they're going to a graduation ceremony of their loved one, and, heck, it makes me proud to see that, that
Yeah.
people are engaging in that in a positive thing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And then, it's not a huge topic for conversational things, but it is an important topic. It can really catapult success and leading you to success on parole. Because a lot of times, even if you're a decent inmate, but you just don't quite grasp insight, how to connect the dots in between what you did in your life crime, for instance, why you did all those things. You can't connect the dots between your causative factors, which are basically your childhood adverse experiences, things like that, and your insight, or if you haven't developed enough or you don't have enough of XYZ programming, domestic violence, and whatever. Commissioners will often throw that in the mix for you're being denied parole because you don't have insight, recent write-ups, blah, blah, blah. They'll throw in the GED. But if you have everything else, you've been able to do it even without a GED or high school diploma, you will not be denied parole.
Oh,
But
no.
like we're trying to describe here is it certainly does help with your self-esteem, foundational elements, parole planning, and things like that. It's definitely helpful. So it's not a bar, and it's not the most important. To me, it's not the most important thing. It's like my guy's over here, and I'm trying to get him to focus on, hey, client, you need domestic violence. Your crime is, you killed your wife,
Mm.
unfortunately, in front of your children, or whatever. You need domestic violence. And it comes to the meeting, it's like, oh, I'm working on my GED, and I work on the yard. I want to keep working on the yard. I'm going, no, dump the GED if you can, and dump the job if you can, and get yourself going on domestic violence, anger management,
That's the
alternatives
key.
to violence, victim impact, etc. It's the key. It's the key.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to emphasize that for any loved ones of persons incarcerated that, oh no, my loved one doesn't have a GED. Well, okay, that's not the end of the world. So let's just wait and see.
Yeah,
Um,
it won't be a barrier, but however, it will definitely help just knowing the concepts that you need to get to have a GED.
yes, for later, because you're in
Mhm.
the community, you're going to apply for a job, and they're going to, in general, like to have someone with a GED because it shows that you have discipline. You probably not a critical thinker necessarily because it's just regurgitation, but that's it. And also it just shows, it teaches you that repetition is the key to mastery, which I repeat over and over and over to my clients when they tell me I don't have a good memory. I said, dude, if I sat down and read this chapter and then you asked me to tell you what it was about tomorrow, I might remember the title, but I'm going to have to review it a couple of different times, make notes, study it, talk to somebody about it, use the 4 learning tools that you have available to you, which is speak it, write it, listen to it, and something else. Talk about it. I already said that. I think it's 4 skills, right?
That's right.
Writing, reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Yeah. And that will help to cement stuff. But that's a whole other, how do you learn versus get educated. Anything about this chapter that we didn't cover? I guess the nuts and bolts of how the scoring works and things like that.
I think we didn't talk too much about vocational classes, if you will, that are available, but I think it's different to each institution, and you have to find what's available at wherever you're at or wherever your loved one's at.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There's that, but that's pretty much just a logistical thing.
Let me ask you this. In terms of your 3rd edition, is this part of the 3rd edition? Will this be part of the 3rd edition? What are you thinking about in terms of any additions to the chapters, anything like that? Or have you even thought about it?
No, I think we've had talked about some good insights here as to this chapter, where it kind of lays out the fundamentals. But in the big picture, education is always important.
Yeah.
And like, I think that the key point to take away here is that anything to improve yourself, to help you, it'll
Hmm.
also lay the foundation for having to do the reading and writing and speaking that you need to do in a hearing or in preparation for a hearing, or even just navigating the self-help uh, avenue. You need to read, you do exercises that you write, or exercises that you talk about in groups. uh, I think it's a good foundation.
I think it is too. And I'll tell you something else. For these guys on level 4 yards going, get away from the gangs and stuff like that,
Hmm.
or just get away from the negative influences or distract yourself. It's a good coping strategy for trying to distance yourself from gang activity because you can go, "Hey, love seeing you today. Love you, man. I got to go to this GED class. I'm being ordered to go." And then you've got some distance there. You've got an excuse to buy yourself time
Sure.
between yourself and that gang activity. And number two, it also shows that you are compliant because someone ordered you to do it. In general, they do order you to attend GED
Mm.
classes if you don't have a GED. So again, not go so you go to your classes so you avoid write-ups. So just kind of that tail end of stuff. But I'm talking about if you don't have it, meaning you're just struggling with it and you're not getting your GED, you will not be denied parole because of that.
No.
But if you are ordered to go to AB 1, 2, or 3, you must go so that you avoid the write up and you show that you're being rule compliant, which is an extremely important criteria for being found suitable. Most of our clients, if you walk into your parole hearing with 10 years rules violations free, you're you're over here like really close to the end zone with a,
Hmm.
you know what I mean?
It's a
Like
good
that
analogy. You're in like the red zone, the last 20 yards to getting it over the goal line.
20, 30 yards, field goal, some you can get just kick the
Hmm.
field goal. You don't need that super touchdown. I mean, we have clients that I sit there going, dude, that was a touchdown, period. Yeah, you caught the ball and you ran all the way down and you scored. Done. Like you just mastered it. But most of our clients are more like a field goal, couple of downs, 3 hearings later, you got enough. You just need enough. You don't need to be the perfect, you and I have those perfect clients that we sit there going,
Oh.
I don't even need to be here. But uh yeah, and then we've got the other ones that are like, is it does the fact that he's not the super perfect client, does that make him a current and unreasonable risk? Does that mean he's going back to his old coping strategy of violence, gangs, drugs,
I
and
think
all
what
the other
makes it so
crimes?
hard to be granted parole is they want to see that the change is permanent. You know, 5 years at least discipline free.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
5 years is a fantastic 10 years.
Oh.
But when I walk in with 10 years, the guy's been trying a program. He doesn't have a GED. He doesn't have a vocation. And he's got some insight. Is it perfectly? No, he's
Hmm.
probably going to be granted by the majority of commissioners. But he was trying. Okay, trying. He's not just like phoning it in and getting
Yeah,
lucky.
warming a seat if you phoning it in, right?
Yeah, phoning it in and expecting to get lucky or not even trying to connect the dots in between. Because they always say, like, if you don't understand why, you don't have enough skills then to figure out how to avoid it in the future. I think they don't quite say it like that, but that's the
Hmm.
California Supreme Court case
Yeah.
that started the trend of inmates being released from prison after years, decades and decades of being denied parole over and over. Now it seems to be swung away over on the other end. I think they're looking for more and more ways to find people suitable rather than Remember when it first started, Joe, and we were just
Oh,
struggling, like denied, lack of insight. But you have this, everything else is great, lack of sufficient insight. It's like, is it really? I mean, he said he grew up in a troubled home. He started using drugs to cope, ran into a few gang members, and then, you know, isn't it sort of obvious to everybody? But anyway,
mhm.
I'm getting off on a tangent, way off on a tangent. Let's talk about, again, I love seeing you today, Joe, and talking about your book. What do we got next week? What's up? What's up for next week?
Wow. Yeah, next week
You got to cheat? I got it
would be
already.
would be chapter 4. Okay, go ahead.
Strategy for control your anger and reduce your stress.
Wow. You know what? I think all of us can use that.
I know I do because
Yeah.
I got a bad temper. I'll tell you that.
Oh no. Well,
Oh, yeah.
I haven't seen that side of you, Elizabeth. My gosh. But
Well, you haven't
mhm.
pissed me off. And then also my clients, I'm like, whew. Last week, I don't know, it was Friday or something. I was good though. They thanked me after and they said, you know what? I just needed it straight up. I couldn't, I couldn't, I wouldn't hear it any other way, but I was a little
Mhm.
frustrated. But
Yeah, well, we'll have to learn how to not only control our anger, but to funnel it in a more creative type activity, of
yeah,
learning. You use that to fuel you in a positive way. But we can talk about that next week.
I love this I'm going to love that chapter. This one was a little dry, but it's okay. It's still
Hmm.
important. I
Yeah.
still think it's important. And I still think it, it belongs where it belongs in the chapter. So I think that's why you laid it out this way. First
Hmm.
strategy one, which is really hard, and then the next ones and the next ones. So I'll be ready with the outline. Thank you to everyone who is viewing now and who may view later. And hey, if you have a loved one incarcerated, needs to kind of know the play by play on how to get out of prison, this is really a great handbook for that. It's not everything. He's not going to teach you insight and stuff like that. He's just going to teach you, what do you need? It's all pretty much here. What do you need to know about the parole hearing? It's all here. And please hit like and subscribe and comment, all comments. And I would love if any loved ones are out there and that might view this show later, please feel free to email us questions and or put questions in the comments. That would be fantastic.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm off to friends making me some lunch because Alan's away, and that should be good. I think it's ribeye. He
Ooh,
promised, hopefully.
nice. Nice.
Yep. And then I'll be back to my favorite 9 pastimes that I've got going. What do you have planned?
I'm just gonna enjoy the day. It's Sunday. Uh,
Okay.
kind of kick back.
You're just going to kick back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, see what sports there is on TV,
Sports,
and
sports, sports. People are shocked to find out that I don't have a TV, but that's
really,
why. No, we have no TV.
I think that's a good thing.
No, it's been fantastic. That and the no drinking. Alan and
Mhm.
I are the most productive people probably on the planet. Maybe not because we
That's
go to bed a
great.
little bit early, but yeah, I have so much I want to do. Like last night I came in, I want to do work on my watercolor, but I started working on that app that I told you about with the using the robot to talk to me, have a conversation with me in Spanish.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Okay, I will see you next week, if not sooner, talk to you sooner. And I really, again, appreciate everything. Joe, thank you for coming and helping me
I
and talking about your
appreciate
book.
your show as well. Absolutely. And
Well, it's kind of our show.
I consider it's, a privilege to be on here. So thank you.
And anybody who needs to get a hold of us, just comment below, look through some of the other posts for our contact information. I'm not a YouTube content creator expert, so hopefully the content is useful to the family members that tune in.
I hope so too.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Bye.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.